Lynn? Hello, all. There's three of you right now, but welcome to the Big Apple Film Festival networking and mentoring session. We have today with us Matt Dye, and he's going to be talking about Film Fest and submissions to screenwriting contests and film fests. And he's also been in management, so he can answer all your questions. For those who haven't done this before, easiest way to ask a question is to use the raised hand emoji, and you can ask Matt directly, or you could type it in the chat box and I could ask it for you as well. So I wanted to welcome Matt. I'd like to say hi and hear a little bit about your backstory, how you got into business.
Yeah, no, of course. Thanks for having me. My first time here working with the Big Apple Film Festival. So I'm excited to share anything that could be helpful for all you guys with trying to break into screenplay competitions and then also management as well, since I've worked on both sides of the coin really within the industry. So I wanted to be a screenwriter. That was the first thing that I wanted to do as a kid. I wanted to be a storyteller. I went to go to school at UT Austin, the University of Texas at Austin. I studied screenwriting and producing. And then while I was in school, I ended up interning at this little film festival called the Austin Film Festival. I didn't quite realize that it was such a vast and important resource for screenwriters in my own backyard in Austin, Texas. So I interned for the screenplay competition director way back in the day, and continued volunteering and working with the festival long after I had graduated from school and became a reader for the festival and really got to see what that process was like with selecting scripts at a major screenplay competition. And then from there, I worked my way up. It's one of those things where you stick around long enough, they'll give you a job. I ended up running the screenplay competition after the director left, and so it was actually a dream come true because I had always wanted to be around screenwriters, screenplays, just about stories, working with filmmakers, especially as a screenwriter as well. I feel like as like reading screenplays you learn just as much from them as you do, like say, taking a class and then reading a book and working on your own screenplays. So I felt like it was a crash course in screenwriting, running the screenplay competition, and I did that for I think over 9 years. And from that time on, I saw the industry change so much. Like the blacklist wasn't even um, a thing when I first started running the screenplay competition at the Austin Film Festival. And at the time, I think it was the Nickel Fellowship, the Academy Nickel Fellowship, and the Austin Film Festival were the two biggest competitions at the time. And then all of a sudden, screenplay competitions just blew up. Now there's like literally hundreds of them. And as of recently, a lot of them are shutting down. I think just sort of as a repercussion from COVID and the strikes and just the state of influx happening within the industry. It's a sort of trickle down effect but at the end of the day, you still have the Austin Film Festival still existing and running strong. So goes without saying, I'm still advocating for many of you to still submit your scripts to the Austin Film Festival. Already closed for submissions for this year, but you can still work on that for next year. But so when I was running the screenplay competition, I guess for you all, because this is about strategies for submitting into screenplay competitions, just kind of understanding like what the basic structure of a competition is, what the role is. So for me as the director, my job was to oversee all operations. So that started off with finding the right readers, recruiting readers, managing them, reading their notes, understanding their tastes and sensibilities, and making sure that they aligned with really what the mission for the Austin Film Festival was, which is about championing and finding original stories. Um, and finding the top writers in the competition, and really it's like it's tough when you to talk about like what is a winning script or a finalist or even a second round script at Austin Film Festival or just any screenplay competition. Because at the end of the day, it is a subjective opinion from a small select group of readers. And you can always, if you did an experiment and submitted the same scripts into a different competition, you'll have different results because of different readers, different tastes, different missions. Um, so at the end of the day, it's like trying to find to have a script that you have that is, I would say, mostly undeniable, and giving people as uh, n not giving them as many reasons to say no to your script, essentially. So that means making sure you've done your diligence, developed your script, um, gone through many drafts of it, have it read by trusted individuals, um, not just friends, but people who have a strong, valued opinion within the industry as well. Um, and then submitting into competitions, but then also understanding what the expectations are once you submit your script, pay your entry fee into a competition. Um, and so it's uh, making sure again, like it's you've developed something and have done your own reading as well. Like I had mentioned the blacklist as well. Like a lot of those scripts that do well in the blacklist are available online. Understanding what's out there in the zeitgeist, what's selling, but also at the end of the day, also understanding what your voice is, like what you bring to the table. Because at the end of the day, is if you win a screenplay competition, that's great because you're judged off of your work, but at the end of the day, you're also going to be judged by who you are as a storyteller. You have to be able to pitch who you are and what your point of view is, because you want to sell a script. You're going to want to work with, it's a collab, working in the film industry is incredibly collaborative. So you're going to want to find producers, directors, actors who will champion your work, champion you and your work. So you have to be able to not only pitch and talk about your screenplay, but also who you are as a storyteller. And that's something that becomes incredibly important within the industry. Like say you do well in the Austin Film Festival or screenplay competition, you attend the festival, you have to be able to talk about your work. If you win a screenplay and you can't talk about it, to people can't pitch it, um, it's uh, it's almost like a fool's errand, essentially. So, but anyway, so just kind of getting ahead in terms of strategies for screenplay competitions, but from working at the Austin Film Festival, I ended up transitioning into literary management and producing. So I had a good working relationship with Adam Kolbrenner, who at the time was manager and producer at Madhouse Entertainment. And so he was launching a new endeavor called Lit Entertainment Group, which was going to be his own solo management and production company. So the timing worked out well where I was already planning on uh, transitioning, trying to find what my new chapter was at the Austin Film Festival after working there for many, many years, and wanted to do something creative, actually working with writers. And the opportunity came up for me to become a full-fledged manager and producer with Adam Kolbrenner as he was launching a new initiative. And that was at the top of 2019. Um, and little did I know that I would be walking into the whole WGA
Yeah.
situation, and involving agents as well. Like WGA had informed all working writers to fire their agents and lean on their managers. So it was a good time for me to jump into management, but also a very scary time. I think just for a lot of people, just trying to navigate a new landscape. So that was 2019. Then 2020 happened. So then, of course, new landscape once again with COVID, and then also with the writer strike following as well. So the industry seems to be perpetually in flux, being hit with a lot of things, a lot of challenging things. But I think at the end of the day, people are still hungry and have a strong appetite for original stories, even though it doesn't seem that way right now, that there's a lot of push for existing IP and working with established writers as well. But I think that's why things like this is important to really understand the landscapes of what screenplay competitions are right now, labs, fellowships, trying to find a platform that will launch you into a very um, busy, oversaturated field right now. So I do want to provide some form of encouragement and hope that there are people who are actively searching for original stories, people with distinctive point of views from all walks of life. It's still a very exciting time to be original storyteller, but it is still very challenging at the same time. So as a manager, I did that for about 4 or 5 years, and I learned so much about what that client writer relationship was like working with a manager, and then also the creative side of producing as well. Work developing an original idea from the ground up, taking it on as a producer, and then figuring out the strategies for getting it made. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Adam Kolbrenner and Lit Entertainment Group very recently produced The Gorge, which was on an Apple original film. Before that was The Tomorrow War, Free Guy, Raised by Wolves on HBO Max. It was the part of the flagship launch for HBO Max a few years ago. So a lot of the projects that Lit Entertainment does, like there's no set genre, but sci-fi fantasy tends to sort of have been their bread and butter for a long time. But what I loved about Adam and his ethos for the company was that it was specifically about championing original stories and creating stories that could become IP rather than chasing the existing IP and trying to churn out the same old stories over and over and over again. You'll find that as in a lot of the films that have come out of Lit Entertainment Group, like take Free Guy, for example, that was amongst one of the highest grossing films that year, and it was the only original film in the top box office that year, which I think was 2021 or 22. Um, so that was something that I really loved about working in management and producing was developing those original stories with my clients and then also coming on board as a producer for certain projects as well. So after Lit, I just decided to focus on my own projects. As I had mentioned before, like I started off wanting to be a screenwriter. That was my first love. So I really wanted to get back into that, focusing on that. And so right now I focus on writing. I also do some script consulting as well right now, working with writers. Um, for my entire professional career, I have been working with writers, developing, uh, not only helping develop their material, but also helping develop their careers and coming up with strategies as well, what to do next once they've written a script and have garnered some accolades and um, how to launch a career and how to sell their scripts as well, how to get them produced and made. Something that I absolutely love doing and still continue to do today. And so, but yeah, like I know there's only a couple of you here, but be thinking about some of these questions that you might have on the screenplay competition side. And also management as well. I'm still very much plugged in with other managers as well, my colleagues on that side of things as well. So I can definitely talk about the representation side of things.
Okay, and I can vouch for the Austin Film Festival as well, because that's where I got my career launched pretty much. And it came from writing a screenplay, sending it in, getting a semi-finalist, and I just happened to be standing in line at a panel with a filmmaker who we just got to talking, and he asked if I had anything we wanted to write, that he could work with, and from there we just kind of hit it off and made 3 films and a couple of shorts. So it works. So,
Yep.
but I did want to talk about like the anatomy of, so I write a great screenplay and I send it into the Austin Festival or some other festival. What's the path that it goes if it's going to be a finalist? So like how many, like, could you take us through, the script comes in, can you take us through the steps? How many reads, how much talk between, how it gets to be a finalist?
For sure, yeah, and I think most competitions, I would hope and would like to think that a lot of them are structured similarly, where you're read and evaluated by at least two different readers in the initial round, just to make sure that it's not just beholden to just one reader's opinion. So generally, you're read by at least two different readers, and um, you get like a specific rating. Each competition again is going to be different. Some do it based off of like a scale, number scale by scores. Some do it by like almost like the coverage style of recommendations, like pass, consider, recommend, or strongly recommend, or um, and so it's usually just a very simple process in the initial rounds. Is it does it feel like it's a strong enough writing sample that's indicative for the writer's voice, style, types of stories that they want to tell? Does it feel fresh? Does it feel unique? If it's familiar, is there familiar? Does it take a unique spin on that, or does it feel like it's trying to be like just a typical cookie cutter film story or TV show? Um, so initially, it gets read by two different readers, and from there, uh, the pool is already narrowed down quite a bit. And then it starts to go through another set of readers to identify if this will stay, like, say, in the second round of the competition or quarterfinals for a lot of other competitions. So again, it's different for each competition. Some call the second round, like, say, like their top 10% or their top 20%. So, but for AFF, there isn't necessarily a set percentage in mind. Usually just kind of like a set range. But like second round, usually, like, say you get about 1,000 scripts for one category. The second round would probably consist of probably like the top 15 to 20% in there. Um, it'll get read by a completely different set of readers who will score it based off of very specific criteria, usually concept, plot, structure, characters, dialogue. Again, there's like a score that's also provided by the readers. Everything gets aggregated, the scores, and then ranked. And then from there, the readers will start narrowing it down even further for the semifinalist round. And then there's also a committee of closely trusted individuals working with AFF, usually people working in the industry who will help narrow down the field for the semifinals, which is roughly the top like 2% of the competition. Again, it's like there's no set percentage, but it's kind of around there, ballpark wise. Um, and then at that point, narrowing it down to the finals, which will be read by industry judges, usually consisting of agents, managers, and producers. Final round is judged by only established screenwriters, just to have that blend of those working on the business side of the industry, and then those on the creative side, the actual writers, who will decide who the winners are at AFF. Um, AFF has many categories. There's feature categories, TV pilots. They even have stage plays, short screenplays, and then different subcategories as well for features and TV. TV, I think, is just broken down into drama and comedy. Features are broken down to drama, comedy, sci-fi, and horror, I believe. And with a number of like production companies as well who have their own categories as well. So that they have their own fellowship arm as well. So, like, say you submit into AFF, you may be considered by a production company for their own individual fellowship that's tailor-made for AFF for them. Um, so there's many different pathways to different pipelines for you at AFF. But I think at the end of the day, it's like also just making sure you do your research on each competition just to see if it's the right fit for you, like based off of the genre, um, level of experience. Because like I said, AFF is they probably receive around 10,000 submissions overall, so you're going to be in a sea of other scripts as well that you're competing with. So it means that you want to make sure that your script is just that much more developed to make sure that you're not necessarily not essentially throwing away your entry fee, but making sure that you're leading with your best foot forward with a script that has been developed enough for it to have a real fighting chance competitively.
Mhm. And I know the Big Apple Film Festival kind of works in the same pattern as you were talking about with AFF.
Mhm.
But are there so let's say you do get to the finals and even win. What's a good way to leverage that into the next step of your career? Um, Going after representation or even production companies.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think if you place even at the say the semifinals level at AFF or most other competitions, I think obviously the higher you place, especially if you win, of course, it gives you a good platform. Um, to get some attention for your script. And I think a good competition is all about generating their own success stories. So that means, like when I was at AFF, it was also about making sure that the winners, the finalists, even the semifinalists as well, that their scripts were exposed to the right people in the industry. So making sure that anybody who loved a script throughout the reading and judging process at any phase of the competition, that I'd make sure that with the writer's permission, that I could introduce them to that person. Or if I felt that I had a personal relationship with say, a producer who was looking for a particular script and I had exactly what they were looking for, that I would seek out the writer and say like, hey, could this might be a good fit? Are you comfortable with me reaching out to this person? So a good competition director, I think, is somebody who would uh, be that liaison to the industry, sort of being an interim manager, interim representative for the writer. Um, so to answer your questions, like if you were, say, if you were a finalist, if you received high placement within a competition, lean on the competition director because at that point you should really have a relationship with them. They should have read your script. They should know who you should get to know them. You should let them know who you are, that you are actively seeking representation if you feel that you are ready for that. Or say if you're looking for independent financing and maybe representation is not necessarily something that you're looking for now, but you're looking to get financing for this because you're wanting to direct this, let the competition directors know so that it's being shameless to a certain extent, but also understanding the value you bring as a storyteller and that this is also in their best interest as well to generate a success story. So the first thing I would say is just lean on the competition director. Just ask them if it never hurts to ask if they have um, opportunities already built in, just so that, like, are you going to get a one-on-one meeting with any of the judges? Making sure those promises are fulfilled if it's something that was already on the table to begin with, even before submitting. So leaning on that. And if there's a festival or conference attached to the screenplay competition like AFF, if it's within your means financially, like get to the festival, be there to promote your work because, you know, say you're a finalist, you are one of very few writers out of, like I said, 10,000 writers who submitted to AFF. A lot of them are at the festival, but there's only a handful of you as a finalist at the festival. And who attends the festival? A lot of agents, managers, producers. A lot of them come to AFF specifically because they are looking for original material. They're looking for clients to sign. They're looking for another project to potentially finance. They're looking for collaborators. So you want to attend the festival. So if you feel, even if you don't place high within AFF, if you have something that you feel is um, you really believe in, it's strong, may have had other strong accolades at other festivals, other competitions, still attend because I think it's still a good opportunity for you to get your work out there. But obviously, if you win or you're a finalist, make sure you're there at the festival. Then leveraging your placement after, I think, is uh, you want to be careful about querying people, like sending query letters, query emails. But I think if you're not necessarily getting attention, because a lot of the top competitions will usually, promote their winners, their top scripts out to their industry lists. And usually, I know AFF does that every year, and usually a set number of writers will, especially the winners, will end up getting queried themselves to have their scripts read by agents and managers, producers. But if you're not getting that, then I think that's time for you to really figure out how you can get your work out there. Querying, I think, I would probably have that be sort of a last resort in terms of getting out there because you're cold querying people and you never know what they might be looking for, if it might lead to like sort of a bad first impression, if you're having to query somebody. Um, Probably the best thing to do is to see if you can get a referral from somebody. So if you have, say, a writer friend who already has a manager or has connections to the industry, or you yourself say you made a connection with somebody at the Austin Film Festival or another event and you got their email, like you really are gonna have to network. Like if you haven't already, you're gonna have to figure out how you can build your tribe of people who can vouch for you as a person, as a writer, for your work. And so, like when I was managing, if I got an email from, say, a producer friend of mine who said, "Hey, I have this amazing writer who I think you should really consider as a client," I'm gonna read that. I'm going to read that this weekend or tonight because I value that relationship with that producer. So if you can find that person who can vouch for you, that's your fastest way to getting read. For managers, uh, for anybody really working on the creative side of the industry, producing and representation, it's a thing called weekend read. Everybody puts their list of scripts, queries, well, first client material, new drafts of projects that they're producing, and then if they're looking for clients, that's towards the bottom, but it's usually part of a weekend read. So they're going to have to prioritize what they need to read. So if it was a referral from somebody that they trust, that they work with, they're going to read that script to honor that relationship. So, uh, so if you do place high in a competition, um, again, it's about timing and finding and making sure that you have people who can refer you and say, "Hey, I know I'm reaching out to you because this writer recently won AFF. They were a finalist at AFF. Um, uh, really feel like this is going to be somebody that you should be reading now before other people get on board with this person." So I'd probably say like that would be my big advice first is after placing is like really just leveraging uh, the actual competition itself, like what they can do for you, leveraging your personal relationships, and then possibly querying because it really is about timing as well. You don't want to have gone a whole year and not after winning AFF or being a finalist and not vouching for yourself, fighting for yourself and your career and your work. But I can talk about queries later as well, but I think that's just my sort of overarching advice, like after you do well in a competition.
Okay, and besides Austin, which of the other screenwriting competitions are worth, will get, are like the hierarchy, are the really good ones that could move the needle?
Oh yeah, well, I would say like the Academy Nickel Fellowship has always been a tried and true thing because I mean it's obviously because it's the Academy. I know that they've changed their format for submissions for this year, so like I don't know what that process looks like if there's some growing pains like say with that because it's a completely different way of submitting now. So I can't necessarily speak to what that's like for the Nickel, but like the people who run the Nickel are really amazing people. They have really a strong group of readers, people on the selection committee as well. I know the folks over there. Final Draft, Big Break is also very reliable as well. I've found a number of writers through there who I end up signing as clients, working with. Um, I'm a big fan of Joey Tuccio with Roadmap Writers. If you're not familiar with him, he is a total champion for screenwriters and his organization as well. He is the epitome of somebody who operates like a manager, who's not a manager. So I would highly recommend using the resources and competitions that are associated with Roadmap as well. But I know like uh, Coverfly, Screencraft, I know that those organizations have like shuttered or in the process of phasing out as well. But when they were in full force, like they were those competitions were also very reliable as well. I think you before you obviously shell out money for an entry fee, you should really look at what they offer. If they have success stories from previous submitters, people who have won and also like what their price package is. Like if they're offering, final draft software, um, great. Or if there's a prize package, that's great too. But are they offering like say an option on the script? Are they offering meetings with professionals in the industry? Are they providing things that are actually meaningful? So And also, is the price point really worth it? Because like obviously the longer you wait to submit in a competition, those late fees can be really expensive. So getting in early for competitions and getting in early is advantageous to you anyway, because, you know, I don't know how many readers most competitions employ and use, but if you're waiting to submit later on, a lot of those readers are going to be exhausted, so having read for a full season, but if you catch them fresh and early, you might have a better chance of having like a very clear read, early on. But yeah, I think those are the ones that come to mind that I think are like the tried and true competitions and organizations to submit to.
Okay. And then speaking of burnout, I mean, you must read thousands of scripts and you know, you kind of talked about, you know, it not it being subjective for people reading scripts. So is it like is it hard to, stay on your A game when you're reading scripts when you have to read so many of them? And how do you cope with that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it's having read so many scripts over time, like you can usually tell, or I can usually tell within the first couple of pages, like what the script is going to be about, what the level of experience the writer, what the right level of experience the writer has, what their writing style is, what their POV. Because I go into script really wanting to be surprised, because usually so many scripts, I mean, there is like sort of like a tried and true formula with three act structure for features. You kind of want to hit your beats, your inciting incident by a certain point. You read any number of historical, like World War II historical projects. You kind of already know when you see the beaches of Normandy on the first page, like what this is going to be about. Um, and with sci-fi and horror, like a lot of the times, it's not necessarily a bad thing to write something that feels formulaic and familiar because there's comfort in that. But at the same time, you want to be surprised. So for me, like having read so many scripts, it's like I'm constantly searching for the thing that's going to surprise me and have me go, aha, or like, you tricked me. I thought I was going to go this way, but now it's this. You know, it really is so important when people say like you really not need to knock out that first couple pages, first page essentially, because within a screenplay competition, you're paying for your entry fee is hopefully guaranteeing that your script is being read from beginning to end. But outside of a competition, an agent, manager, producer can just stop after page one, after page two, first couple of pages. You really have to draw them in because that is our job. Like I talk about weekend reads. Within the industry, most people are reading anywhere from say like a dozen to 50 something pieces of material. So it's not just screenplays, it's articles, books, plays, anything written, Instagram posts, like anything, like things that could be acquired as IP or original stories. And so attention span is such a thing, and you need to draw somebody in immediately right off the bat, So, um, but yeah, like again, it just goes without saying that, in the industry, everybody reads. Like if you're working in the industry, it's expected that you're constantly reading tons and tons of material, and you never know really what is out there, like in the zeitgeist. Like I was developing a number of original projects at the company that I was with before, and then when we would take it out, that was when we would realize, oh, there's a dozen projects out there that's so similar, but there's no way for us to really know because everybody holds their cards close. They don't really say what they're producing necessarily unless you're talking to a lot of people and you happen to hear through the grapevine. So you really want to try to make sure that you have something that feels distinctive and original and very much you, and who you are as an original storyteller and the type of stories that you want to tell. Because it is incredibly oversaturated out there in terms of material.
And does low page count and white space on the page help?
Oh, absolutely. Like I don't know how many times people have said, and I've done it too, where you read a script and you just see, again, you talk about weekend read. If you have, if somebody sends me a script, even if it's a referral, like, oh, it's 140 pages. Well, is this something that I want to prioritize reading now, as opposed to something that is like, say, it's a lean rom-com that is 80 pages. Like I might be more inclined to read that. And then also just seeing within those first couple of pages, is it is it a lot of white space? Does it feel like it's a nice, tight, lean script? Like there's no reason why a script needs to be full of like dense scene description, you know. And if that's the type of writer you are, it better be the most engaging piece of prose on there. But even then, prose can get lost. It does get lost in the translation because this screenplays people can forget that it's a blueprint for a finished project. But a lot of the times, again, going back to like wanting to be surprised, I think what I love when I read a script, and this is probably just from my own personal taste, like I love when something feels like it's just for me as the reader, where the writer takes some fun liberties with the script just to make sure I'm still entertained in the reading experience of the script, even though it may not translate into the finished produced film if it gets made, if it ever gets made. But like, um, you know, like I want to feel like I'm in the hands of a storyteller. Again, even if it's something that feels familiar, like, oh, I know what the story is, but like I'm having a blast reading this. If it's an action film, I feel like I'm riveted. I'm on the edge of my seat just trying to see if the hero will survive this. Or if it's a horror film, if the final character is going to make it through in the end. If it's a historical film, project, it feels like something that a piece of history that I haven't seen before. Um, you know, I just want to be taken on a journey, essentially.
Okay, I guess it's time to talk a little bit about film fests, if and we can get back to screenwriting if we have
Mhm.
time. Uh, so submitting to film fests, what's the should you have a big strategy after you complete your film on festivals, where to send it to? How many do you target the bigger ones, or do I guess you also have to worry about fees as well. What would be a good strategy to come up with when
Oh, for sure. It's it's really challenging because at the end of the day, the programmers for each festival have to fill a block. So, like, I think it's more specific to shorts, but also I think applicable to features that, like, say if you have like a long 40-minute short, the chances of you actually making it into a block of short films for at a film festival, um, is lesser because they have they have only so many minutes within their block to fill. So if you have a shorter uh, short film, you'll have a greater chance of filling a block. So I think you want to make sure that what you have is appropriate for a film festival, and particular film festival, like say Sundance, for example. Like if this is your first feature film, independently financed, um, crowdsourced, you and you yourself know what you have too. Like if you feel like you have something that is a very strong product, by all means submit to something like Sundance. But something like Sundance is incredibly difficult to get into. So you may want to have a chance, you have a better chance of submitting to, say, like more of like a mid-level film festival, mid-level in terms of size of submissions as well. I think you really want to see most film festivals put out there publicly like how many submissions they receive annually. So you want to really know, um, because you already have spent so much money financing your short film feature that now you have to also shell entry fees to a number of film festivals across the country, across the world. I think you have to first know what film festival is the right home for your film. So, for example, the Awesome Film Festival, the um, the ethos of the festival is about championing the storyteller. Um, the award for films at AFF go to the screenwriter, not the director. So if the director didn't write the screenplay, it's a different screenwriter, the screenwriter still receives the award. So, and the reason for that is like they are putting a lot of emphasis on the storytelling, the writing. So if you have a highly experimental film that doesn't really rely too much on structure, or dialogue, it may not do well at AFF. So that's something to know. Like you would really need to do your research to understand what types of films are selected at a festival. So obviously, um, if you have like a genre film, horror, sci-fi, fantasy, there are a number of film festivals across the world that cater to that as well. So you want to make sure that you are looking um, at where the right home is for the film uh, that you want to submit to. Um, and then from there, get in early, obviously, because like I said, it's the same thing with screeners. Andy knows as well too, because we both are working on as consultants and screeners for a number of other film festivals as well. The early you can get in, the better chances of getting a screener with fresh eyes on your script, on your film. And a lot of films get locked again, like I can't speak to every film festival, but I know that a lot of film festivals, when they find a film that they love, they want to lock it early as much as possible so they can beat other festivals who are also trying to get it there. With scripts, it's about a lot of times like the writers don't necessarily need to be there because there's no screening for it. But for films, the creators behind it, their dance card is only limited to how many film festivals they can actually attend with the film. So um, um, film festivals will essentially try to lock and chase films that they love early on. So again, like the earlier you can submit, the better. And I mean, it's a good place to be anyway if you're being courted by a number of film festivals, because then you can take your pick as well. But I think that's something that a lot of filmmakers don't like realize, especially newer ones, that they start locking fairly early on. Whereas, like, would say screenplay competitions, all the results are announced all at once usually, but films are usually behind the scenes are locked along the way.
And how do you feel about getting a film early, but there's still work to be done on it, and there's like, you know, in the film
That's
it's
a very good question because I think, film festival directors, screeners like are fully aware that projects could still be works in progress. A lot of them are also identified as that just so that they can get the film submitted and considered early enough because the window of time from like say when somebody submits like within for the early bird deadline and to the final deadline is like months. So of course, a director, filmmaker can still take the time to, lock picture, lock the music, maybe make a couple of tweaks in editing, do a lot of post work. That's inevitable for a lot of films as well. So don't feel necessarily that it has to be completely polished before submitting, but it needs to feel that you've done enough of that work and that there's not much left to be done after. Like, I wouldn't necessarily try to submit something half-baked just because you want to meet a deadline. Save yourself the entry fee because most likely it won't be seriously considered. But if you feel that it's done enough that the festival organizers can see the quality of the work, and then you can make those finishing touches later.
and then if you get into a festival, and I mean, I know people have hired like publicists and people to like pump up your attendance at the festival. I know a lot of people bring a lot of cast and crew to the festivals, and uh, what's your thoughts on stuffing the crowd or getting people to watch your film to make it more?
Oh yeah. So again, like every festival is built differently. So I know a number of film festivals where they may have their own in-house PR people who can help with the films because it's again it's of the best interest for the film festivals to generate their own success stories. So a lot of them will end up promoting the films that they're playing to get butts and seats because you get butts and seats, then you get audience members who are incredibly enthusiastic, hopefully for the film, who will create strong word of mouth, maybe get an audience award out for the film as well. So in terms of like say like PR, like if you're new to this or you don't have somebody to do PR for your film, again, lean on the festival directors and see if they can recommend anybody to help on that side of things to get butts and seats. And I think also what a lot of first-time filmmakers don't fully realize is that you cannot rely on the film festival to guarantee that you will have full attendance. It is, again, of the best interest for the film festival to do that, but it's entirely also up to you as the director, the filmmaker, to get butts in seats. So it's if you have talent in the film who is of certain notoriety, like a recognizable face, like leverage that as much as possible. Um, a lot of times people will create their own sort of like flyers or postcards to pass out. I mean, like you want to be careful about that because also it's money that you're spending, but you want to choose wisely about how you're getting your project out there. Um, you like I know that at AFF, like for example, like the best thing that people come out of AFF, like people come to AFF looking to get their film sold or to find a representative, but the tried and true thing every year, specifically at the Austin Film Festival, that people find their tribe there. They find their future collaborators. They form friendships with their fellow screenwriters in the screenplay competition, their fellow filmmakers. Filmmakers find writers within the screenplay competitions as well. So a lot of them will end up creating friends at the festival who will help put word of mouth and will want to attend their film as well. So you do have to put the work in when you're actually at the festival, make friends, find people there. It's all about networking and you have to work the festival. Like you have to be there, going to the events, the parties, going to other screenings as well, meeting other filmmakers and saying like, hey, like I loved your film. Like check out mine. It's playing at this block of time as well. Um, but you really do absolutely have to market your own film as well. And usually, I know at the Austin Film Festival, they would usually set a call with the filmmakers that are selected for the film festival to give them tips on how to best leverage their official selection at the festival and how to get butts in seats, and then recommendations for PR people if they don't already have somebody to help promote their work. And it's even like, I know working with like say like local news stations as well. I know AFF would do that, especially if there was like a local incentive for a film to play to get the word out. There's many different strategies, but the key thing is like you have to do the work.
So I guess like the online festivals wouldn't have as much value in your opinion.
I haven't done too much on the online side, except for, the COVID year for the Austin Film Festival where everything was online. But I would say like it's similar and different thing. So if it's purely online, there's no physical event for you to actually, be promoting, then you're doing everything on social media. Like you're still trying, you would still need PR support, to get the word out, for something that's online, exclusively online.
Mhm. And then do you suggest putting laurels all over your picture when it's if it's made other festivals when you're sending it out to additional festivals? Does it help to put laurels on your title?
It really depends because I think you would need to make sure that if you're wanting to be an official selection that because a lot of them have premiere status requirements. So like say if it's uh, a lot of them will prefer regional premieres or like say Austin would prefer like at the very least like say a Texas premiere for a film. So if you played at other film festivals, like don't waste your entry fee, and like say if you submitted to another Texas film festival, like don't bother submitting because like if they have that as a requirement, so you're gonna have to look at that first. But if it because a lot of the festivals they want to be the one who just has discovered you, but a lot of them will also play films that other festivals have played because there's like say like a trickle down, like say something that played at Sundance could play at say at Tribeca just because of the timing in the year, or something that played at Toronto would play at AFF just because again timing of the year as well for fall festivals. So, but yeah, it really depends in terms of submitting it but you do want to be forthright about where you've played before.
Okay. We only have a few minutes left, so if anybody does have any lingering questions that we haven't covered yet, feel free to jump in. Um, I did want to ask if you, what have you ever read a screenplay early that you've seen on screen later? Many of them, or
Oh, many. Yeah, I know. It's like especially from AFF because it takes a long time for scripts to eventually get not only get bought but developed and redeveloped and then get made and then eventually released. So, but yeah, like I've seen that many, 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 many times. Like uh, well, I had mentioned like say The Gorge, which was produced by Lit Entertainment Group by Adam Kolbrenner and his client who wrote it. Um, like I recently just saw that a couple of weeks ago, and that was a script that was in development when I was there working as a manager and producer. So, and I mean, a lot of the projects that Lit and ends up choosing to produce will inevitably get made. So that was fun to see that process, to see what that how that script has changed. Um, there was a script that I particularly loved at AFF called 3 Months that ended up getting produced and made. Um, I can't remember who the production company was, but it was a writer who I had met at the festival, really loved, became friends with, and it was a script that like one day I hope this gets made, and then it got. He ended up directing the film, and Troye Sivan ended up playing the lead in the film, and it that was probably one of my favorite scripts that I read at the Austin Film Festival, and I really loved that it got made into a feature film and got to see it uh, on screen.
how close was it to the original script when
I
you?
think it was pretty close because it was a script that I had read many times over and over again because I just loved it so much. I championed it as much as possible, and I feel like the spirit of the script was very much intact. So I love seeing stuff like that.
Okay, and then so you, okay, Chris.
Hey, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt the
Oh
question.
no.
Get my hand up. But, thank you, Matt, for doing this, and Andy for facilitating. Um, so yeah, I have a film that I'm in post on now. The goal is to submit, obviously. So I was very interested to hear your take on film fest strategies in the second half of the talk. Um, I was curious your experience as a manager, as a rep. I've been in the process of putting together some cold outreach, and it seemed in my head like this, you know, obviously the opportunity is there to point to something that you're currently doing. Um, how much should you be reaching out to potential reps along the way, along milestones of I have this film I'm planning to submit versus waiting to actually submit versus waiting to see if, an accolade comes back? Is there any are there multiple touch points, I guess, to extract from this journey?
Yeah, no, for sure. So I guess so. My first question for you is like, do you see yourself exclusively as like a traditional auteur, like writer director, or do you see yourself as like a screenwriter who is comfortable selling scripts on spec, not necessarily directing your own stuff?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay.
I think that would be a great question to have to answer at some point. Yeah. Is that something that I should have a clearer picture of?
Yeah, no, I think so. And I think you should have like my opinion is I think you should come into it knowing what you want to do. So like if directing is not necessarily what you feel comfortable the most doing or that it's or it is the thing that you love doing the most, but not necessarily screenwriting. I think you want to have a clear picture of like, or at least for now, what you're comfortable doing. So like right now, I want to be a writer who sells scripts on spec, but I also have aspirations to direct one day. And so, but in the meantime, if I'm finding a rep, I would love to work with you to help develop me as a writer. And then eventually, once I create some notoriety for myself as a screenwriter, that we can talk about strategies in transitioning into directing. Maybe we can figure out ways to work on a short film together, figure out independent financing, find producing partners for that, find a creative team to focus on that. So I think you want to go into it like like when I was repping writers, meeting with potential writers as clients, like I always wanted to know like that I want to be the highest level version of myself as possible. I want to be a high output screenwriter with aspirations to potentially be a director or be the showrunner of my own show, be the creator of my own show. I want to know somebody who is that you are assertive and that you have a clear vision of what you want to do creatively. So I think coming in and knowing that at the very least, like you're open to that, so that if you're seeking a representative, that they know what the strategies are moving forward. So that's why I asked, like, if like you really want to focus on directing more than screenwriting. So then that means you should find a manager, a rep that has that experience working with directors. Because like for me, my whole again, like my whole professional experience has been working with screenwriters and some directors, but in terms of like independent financing, that's not my forte. Like trying to help put together an independent film, I don't have very much experience on that side of things. But I have a lot of experience with developing materials and then getting writers booked for jobs and selling their scripts. But for filmmakers, that's not necessarily my forte. So I would probably want to recommend you to one of my other colleagues as well. So I think it's knowing who you are as a creator, what your goals are, at least right now, and what you want to bring to the table. So if you're, say, for film festivals and if that's what you want to do as a director, you want to make sure that you have, at the very least, a produced short film that you directed that can speak to your sensibilities, your directing style, your aesthetic. And the more samples that you have, short films, if you have a feature that you directed yourself, if you have a number of feature scripts, pilots that you wrote yourself as well, like the more samples you have, the better, because a representative needs samples to send out as to be indicative of who you are as a creator. Like as a manager, like if I signed a new client, I would like to introduce them to people that I have a good working relationship with. So I would say like, hey, we are developing this really awesome idea that I think is going to be like ready for you down the line, just so you can get in on early, read up on this new client, watch their short film, and get educated on this person, so that when we have this new piece of material ready to go, you will be one of the first people that will get to read it, because you've already met with this writer, this director up front. So I think it's before you query and try to find a representative, like I think you have to make sure that you are ready for that. So making sure that you have samples, pieces of material that they can use to promote you as a creator. And I think the more actionable things you have, like say if you have a feature film that um, you did direct and previously and it received lots of accolades at other film festivals, and you have a new feature film that's ready to go, like why wouldn't a representative want to work with you? Because you already have something that has been proven, tested as well. Same thing as with screenplays. If you've sold something or you've received accolades at another competition, like the more that you have um, in your portfolio, samples and accolades, the better. So I think that's the first step before querying anybody, reaching out to anybody, is making sure that you have enough to speak to about yourself, and that the timing is right. And again, like what I said before, even before querying, I would recommend seeing if you could have somebody who could be a referral for you to somebody. Because I think if you're cold querying somebody who, like, say you saw them speak at a panel or Zoom or something, you have no connection to them and you're going to cold query them, they don't have to respond to you. But again, if it's a referral, they're going to want to honor that relationship. They'll read it and they'll at least get back to that person. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
We have to
Thanks.
wrap up, but thanks so much, Matt, for the informative hour, and thank you all for attending. And sure I'll see you in Austin.
Yeah.
Or I know I'll see Matt, but
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Hope this was helpful.
bye.
Thank you.